Okay, so today we will learn transactions in SQL Server. Okay? What is a transaction? A transaction is a group of commands that change the data stored in a database, and transaction is treated as a single unit, and a transaction ensures that either all of the commands succeed or none of them. If one of the commands in the transaction fails, all of the commands fail. And any data that was modified in the database is rolled back. In this way, transactions maintain the integrity of data in a database. Okay, now this was the description or definition for a transaction. Now let's break it apart. Okay, what does this mean in our language? So, for example, like first thing, transactions are mostly used in financial systems, like in banks especially. Now I will give you a real life scenario when you can actually use the transactions. For example, you have bank account, right? And what actually happens in a bank account is like when you deposit money or when you transfer money, right? It's not actually, for example, you are sending me say $100, right, from your account. It doesn't mean that somebody sitting in the bank will take the actual $100 bill from your account and go and put it in my account, right? So the physical money will not move. Only the digital money will move, right? So nobody's like every day millions of transactions are happening. But that doesn't mean that every bank there's someone who is sitting there and who is taking the actual cash and bringing it and putting it to someone else's account. Like for example, if I have a Bank of America account and if you have a Chase Bank account, and if you send me money, Chase Bank is different building, bank account is a different building, right? It doesn't mean someone at Chase Bank will go in their, say, in their vault where they keep the money and take the money, actual cash, and then take a taxi and then go to Bank of America and then put that actual cash in your account, right?
Yeah.
It only happens in the digital level. So actual cash will stay where that is. But your account only will show that, okay, if you had $1,000, now it's $900. And if I had $1,000, now it's $1,100, right? Only that digital thing will change, okay?
Yeah.
So now imagine this situation. I will open up this Excel sheet, okay? So that it's easier for you to see what actually happens, and then I'll show you how to do that in the coding process. First thing, I want you to understand what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Now, imagine. So let's say we have two bank accounts, right? So, and for just for it to be easy, I'll just say it both are in one bank, okay? So we have Bank of America, okay? And then bank account, say, okay? This is your bank account and this is my bank account, okay? So if you open your bank account like app, what you will see is you see the like balance, right? Then you see the transactions, right? Like where you paid how much and all that. So let's say transaction number, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This will be like 1, 2, 3 so far. And well, actually, we'll not do this, but I'll just show you one transaction only, so it's even easier. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Transaction number. Let's say balance. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have another balance. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's say you have $1,000 in your account, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have, let's say, $800. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the current status of your account. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now you need to transfer $100 to my account, right?
Yeah.
So basically, what happens is, as I said, the actual cash will not move; it will stay wherever that is, and then the banks will figure out how to, interchange money sometime in the future. But for you, it has to be instant.
Yeah.
So what happens is, okay, you say transfer $100 to my account. Okay. Now what happens is it will come and update your balance. So it will basically be like a table, like something like this tables. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is SQL Server, like behind the scenes, will just update your update your balance. So if this was the current balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now what happens? This is the, I will say, current,
Mm-hmm.
and this is after transaction. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So $100 transferred. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now what happens is once it's transferred at $100, SQL Server will come and update your balance to 1,000 minus 100 because you're sending $100, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now your balance will become 900. Okay.
Yeah.
And it will come here at the same time. Will update my account balance plus $100. Now my balance will become 900. Okay.
Yeah.
This is what happens. That's it. Like basically, whenever you make a transaction, your
Mm-hmm.
balance, the table that shows your balance, will get updated. That's it. Okay. So if you find a way to hack the bank system, you can basically go ahead and you update your balance to $1 million. That's it, and you have $1 million.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is all that happens when you just transfer money from one account to another account. Okay. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else happens. So basically, if you send one amount of money, it will be balance minus that amount of money, and
Mm-hmm.
whoever is receiving will have balance plus that whatever amount was sent. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine a situation. You are trying to send. You have $900, but now you're trying to send $1,000 to me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now what happens is the SQL Server will try to update your balance 900 minus 1,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
It means you actually don't have enough money to transfer. Okay.
Yeah.
But since the SQL Server updates it one at a time, this will become minus 100. Okay.
Yeah.
And this will become 1,900. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But the bank shouldn't let you send more money than you have, right?
Yeah.
Because if it lets everybody to send more money than what they have, the bank will go bankrupt, right?
Yeah.
So basically, it should stop right here and say, hey, you don't have enough money, and then put that 900 back. And here, also put that 900 back again. Okay? This task is achieved using the transactions in SQL Server. Basically, what this is saying here, what this is saying is here is that a transaction is treated as a single unit. Okay? This means this whole process is being treated as single unit. It either will succeed or it will fail. It's not that half of it will succeed and the half will fail. Okay? This whole thing must succeed or whole thing must fail and go back to the original state. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, let's see that in action, and then it will make sense to you. For example, this is the syntax. Okay. So you basically put the transaction in a stored procedure, but this part is the transaction part. You either commit the transaction or you roll back the transaction. Okay. Commit means, okay, everything is good, now save the data.
Yeah.
Roll back means, okay, something wrong happened, so put the data back to what it was originally. Okay? So it means you either commit if there is no error, or if there is any error, you go here and then you roll back the transaction.
Yeah.
Okay? If you remember this try-catch blocks that we learned the last lesson, it will try here. If something happens here, it jumps to this catch block. Okay? Okay. Now let's see that in action. Okay?
Yeah.
First thing, let's create a table that's called account table. Okay? So we will actually see this bank transfer in action. Okay, this is what happens in banks. First thing, let's create a table that's called account. Okay, as we'll say account number as integer. Okay, and then account holder name. Okay, we'll say varchar 20. Just a second. Okay, so account holder's name, varchar 20, and then balance. Balance will be integer. Okay. So now I will execute this, and let's insert two rows only. Okay, so we can transfer from one account to another account. So this is what we have for now. So we'll insert into account values of account number 1, holder's name is Shaukat, and then balance, let's say $300.
Mm-hmm.
And the second account is account number 2, and the account holder's name is Punyot, and then money is, say, $200. Okay. Now I insert, and now we have this. Okay, so this is the current status of the accounts. Okay?
Yeah.
So account number 1 is your account, and you have $300, and account number 2 is my account, and I have $200.
Mm-hmm.
And we can transfer money in between, right?
Yeah.
Okay. First thing, let's create a stored procedure.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say create procedure, and we'll call it money transfer. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And as begin end. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is the basic procedure syntax. You know that, right? So now let's first think, what should this store procedure do when I transfer money from one account to another account? Okay.
Yeah.
It should basically update these 2 rows when I transfer money, right? So
Yeah.
when I, for example, transfer $100 from your account to my account, what it should do is it should come here and update your balance to this 300 minus 100, and then at the same time update my balance to 200 plus 100, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what happens. That's it. Like it should be a simple update statement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So now we'll say update account, right?
Mm-hmm.
Balance equals to balance, for example, plus 100. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Or let's say first minus 100, because we are withdrawing $100 from your account. Okay? That's why I'm saying set the balance, right? Balance equal to balance minus 100. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So balance is 300. Now it will set the balance to 300 minus 100. So it will become 200 now. Okay?
Yeah.
But which balance should it update? It should update where the account number is equal to 1, right?
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't update mine. It should update your account because you are the one who's sending the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it should do another update. This time, so this is your account. This will be my account. So my account should get updated to plus 100, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
This is all. This is what should happen. When you send me $100, it should minus that $100 from your balance and plus that $100 to my balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand so far?
Yeah, it's also an update function inside of your procedure.
Yeah. So let me first execute this part only, okay?
Yeah.
So you'll understand. Basically, we are sending $100 from your account to my account, okay?
Yeah.
So if I execute this, now 2 rows are affected.
Mm-hmm.
And if I select everything from this table now your account has $200 and I have $300 because you sent 100 to my account, right?
Yeah.
So this is what your bank app will show you now. After you send the money, when you look at your balance, now it will show you minus this, and if I look at my account, it will show plus 100.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So does this make sense so far? Like how you just sent the money? This is how you send the money. This is what happens when you send money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And now, but we have to automate this process, right? I have to be able to provide any amount of money, and it should execute the same thing for any amount of money, right? If I say, for example, 200, it should execute this update statement for 200. If I say 50, it should execute this statement for 50, right?
Yeah.
So for that, if you remember, we had parameters for store procedures, right?
Yeah.
So now, what parameters do I need to have? Okay, I need to have sending amount. I need to have receiving amount. I need to have the sending account number, and I need to have the receiving account number, right?
Yeah.
I need 4 parameters. Okay.
Yeah.
So I will create that first. Send amount. Okay. And it will be an integer because you will send some amount of money. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the second will be receive amount. That will also be integer. And then the third parameter will be send account, and it will also be integer. And then the fourth will be receiving account. Okay. And it will be also integer. So when you basically send money, you have to specify the amount of the money that you are sending and the person that you are sending it to, right?
Yeah.
So and then this will take these values and then go and update that sending account and then receiving account. Okay.
Yeah.
So and then since now I have this 4 parameters, now I have to also replace this with the parameters, right? Because once I provide the value for each of these parameters, it should come and sit somewhere. So I will put the sent amount to here, okay? Because I have to subtract that sent amount from your current balance, right?
Yeah.
And then sending account, it will be this one, account number, whoever is sending it, right?
Yeah.
And then receiving amount. Well, actually, we don't need the receiving amount because sending amount is the receiving amount, right?
Yeah.
Well, whatever you send, that will be received. So we don't even need this receiving amount. So I can actually just put this not sent amount. I'll just put this amount. Okay. So because the amount to be sent and received is the same, right? You send the same amount and you receive the same amount.
Yeah.
So if I am specifying the amount, which is $100, I should remove that $100, subtract that $100 from sending account, and add that $100 to receiving account, right?
Yeah.
And then receiving account will be this receiving parameter. Okay? So now what happens is after I create this store procedure, it will ask for parameters. Amount of money that I want to send, and the account that I want to send it to. Okay?
Yeah.
So now let's create this store procedure. So command is successful. And now let's execute the store procedure. Execute the store procedure with first thing is amount. Before that, let's check our current balance. Okay. So this is the current balance. You have 200 and I have 300. Okay. So now let me send you $100. So you will have 300 and I will have 200. Okay.
Yeah.
So the amount is what? $100. So I put the amount. and then the second is the sending account. So I am the sending one. So I'll put my account number, which is number 2, and I'm sending it to your account, okay, which is number 1. So basically, I am sending $100 from account 2 to account 1. Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's execute this, and 2 rows are affected. And now if I check this, now you have 300. Now I have 200. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is what happens whenever you send money from your bank app. Once you provide this amount, and then like whoever is phone number that you want to send, and then when you hit the send button, it will execute this store procedure, and then it will just update the balance table.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. This is all what happens when you have this is what happens in the banks. And now let's try to send more money than you have. Okay, now I have $200. Okay, and I will send you $500. Okay, so now I say $500, and I'll send it. Again, 2 rows are affected, but if you look at this, now I have minus 300. This is wrong, right? Like this shouldn't happen, because what this is saying now is bank is basically letting you use the money that you don't have.
Yeah.
Bank is basically paying 300 from its own pocket. Okay? If this keeps happening, the bank will go bankrupt, right?
Yeah.
Because you can use this $800, right? The money that I don't have, okay? And I cannot use this and I have like minus 300. Well, basically, I didn't have the money. Okay. So we have to do some error handling here. Okay. Now another thing is, let's say by mistake, let's say I'm sending from my account to an account that doesn't exist. Let's say account number 6. Okay. Someone that doesn't exist. If I execute this, 1 row is affected and 0 row is affected. Now, if you look at this, I have minus $800. You still have the $800, but this $500 is somewhere in the air.
Yeah.
Right? I sent the money, but they took that money from my account because now I have minus 800 balance. But since this account doesn't exist, it only updated my account. Now I have minus 800, but this money didn't go anywhere. It's like somewhere in there. It got lost.
Yeah.
Right? This also shouldn't happen, right? So I shouldn't be able to send or receive to an account that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
This is the second thing that we should do on error handling. Okay? And if this happens, what should happen is, if this kind of mistakes happen, this should say, okay, this account doesn't exist, and then shouldn't update anything. It should put back the things as it was. Okay?
Yeah.
Like right now it's not doing anything. It's just updating it, letting you do anything. So basically, it's messy.
Yeah.
Basically, our $500 is somewhere in the air now. We don't know where the money is, but they actually took the money from my account, but nobody received that money because this account doesn't exist. So basically, this $500 got lost.
Yeah.
Okay. And the customers can sue the bank for this kind of things, right? So the bank has to prevent these things from happening. Okay. Okay. So how do you do that? The thing is, so first thing, let's understand what do we need to do. First thing, we should consider every scenario which is a mistake. The first scenario is, for example, there shouldn't be an account that doesn't exist, like this. Number 6 doesn't exist, right? So I cannot send to account number 6 because it doesn't exist. So I should consider that also. And if this kind of things happen, it should say, okay, this account doesn't exist, and then put the money back.
Yeah.
Okay, this 500 shouldn't get lost. And the second thing is, I shouldn't be able to send more money than I have, right?
Yeah.
If I have $800, I cannot send $900. And if I try to send $900, it should tell me, okay, you don't have enough funds. And then it shouldn't touch my balance. It should stay the same because it shouldn't let me send the money, right?
Yeah.
So there's two things that we should do now. For that, we use the if you remember that try and catch blocks. Remember the try and catch blocks that I think we did it like last or the previous lesson.
Yeah.
And then for the part that it should put the money back, we use the transactions. Okay. So we will add two more things. One is the try catch block to check if this is a mistake or not. And another thing is transactions. If this is good, it should let it happen. And if it's not good, it shouldn't touch the balance. It shouldn't update anything. Okay? So these two things we'll do. So for that, we will say, so let me copy this so that you have both states of the procedure. Proc, so I'll say proc 1, okay? And then here I'll say proc 2. Basically, I will be altering the same procedure, but I want you to have all of the steps, how it evolved, okay?
Yeah.
So this one I say alter procedure, and now I add the try catch blocks, okay?
Yeah.
So I say begin try and try, begin catch and catch. Okay? So now, what happens? So it should first check if the account has enough money, and it should also check if the account actually exists, right? And if it doesn't exist, it should say account doesn't exist. And if it doesn't have enough money, it should say you don't have enough money, right? So for that, just a second. Okay, now we have the script for the transactions. This is basically we are achieving that transaction with only begin and try catch blocks. Okay. What is happening is, so since our procedure it accepts this amount and sending account, receiving account parameters, right? What I'm saying is I'm first checking if the amount that you provide is greater than the amount, you see, select balance from account where account number equals to sending account. If the amount that you're providing is higher, if it's more than the balance of the sending account, or sending account is not in the accounts, see, select account from account table, or receiving account is not in the accounts, begin and then if you remember this error handling, raise error, and then say error occurred, not enough funds, or person doesn't exist. Okay. Else means if everything is fine, right? Just update the tables. Okay. Update this account table, set the balance equals to balance minus the amount, where the account number is the sending account, and also update the same table and set the balance equals to balance plus the amount, where the account number equals to receiving account, right?
Yeah.
And then say funds were successfully transferred. Okay. So, for example, if I transfer this funds, say $100, you have the $100, and accounts are all good. You see? Rows are affected, and then it will say funds were successfully transferred. Okay? And then end the try. Okay? If anything else happens, raise this error. If any of those errors happen, say error occurred and not enough funds, or sender doesn't exist, receiver doesn't exist, or not enough funds or person doesn't exist. If any error happens here. Okay? If any error happens here, if you remember this begin try, end try, like if any error happens within the try block, it will jump to the catch block, right?
Yeah.
And then within the catch block, it will also check which kind of error happened. Okay?
Yeah.
It will again do these checks. Okay? It will again do these checks, and then accordingly it will raise an error. If it's not enough funds, it will say not enough funds. If the sender doesn't exist, it says sender doesn't exist, and receiver doesn't exist, receiver doesn't exist. Okay? So this is achieving the transfer thing with only try-catch blocks. Okay?
Yeah.
If you remember the try-catch blocks, what it does is it will try doing something, and if everything is good, it will do whatever that is. But if any kind of error happens within here, it will stop this and then jump to catch block and then start doing whatever is in the jump block, catch block.
Yeah.
Right? Basically, in this case, this doesn't do anything, this raise error. Because if there's error, it will jump here anyway. Okay? This is just for the sake of having the correct syntax. Okay?
Yeah.
This will never get executed. Okay? So basically, if there is any error, it will raise one of these errors accordingly. So there's multiple steps are happening. The first step is we are checking for any of these conditions. Okay? So what we're saying is, well, we're checking if the amount is correct, and if the receiving account is correct, and then the sending account is correct, right? We're checking that here, okay? And then saying if any of this is incorrect, that means there is an error, right?
Yeah.
Go to this catch block. That's how the try catch block works, right? If some kind of error happens in the try block, it will jump to the catch block.
Yeah.
So that means if we're checking those conditions, that means if any of these conditions fail, that means there will be an error. Okay? And then it will jump to catch block right away.
Yeah.
And then in the catch block, we could have just said one error only, right?
Yeah.
But we want to be able to specify each error, okay?
Yeah.
So that's why in the catch block, it again starts checking.
Yeah.
Because I have to specify separate errors for each situation, right?
Yeah.
So it will check first the amount again. If the amount is if there's not enough funds, it will check this, and if this fails, meaning if the amount is higher than the actual balance amount, it will raise this error. It will say error occurred, not enough funds.
Yeah.
Else, it will check again. Else, and then if. And then it will check if the sender account is in here or not, if the sending account exists or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why I'm saying send account. This is the parameter that gets the send account when we provide that, right here. And then it checks if this, for example, in this case, if one exists, or you see, if it not exists, basically, if it doesn't exist here, if I say select account number from account and execute that, it will give me 1 and 2, right?
Yeah.
So basically, if the value that I'm providing for sending account, in this case 1, if it doesn't exist here, you see, it says not exist, not in, right? It will raise this error, and it says sender doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So in this case, I'm checking the sending account.
Yeah.
Else, it will, if this passes, it will check the receiving account. Okay?
Yeah.
Receiving account in our case is number 2. It checks if the number 2 is not in one of this. Okay?
Yeah.
If it's not in one of these, okay, that's what we're saying. If this receiving account is not in, select account from account. If not in any of this, then raise this error and say receiver doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Else, now we have only one option left, right? Else, not enough funds, or person doesn't exist. Okay?
Yeah.
And this will not be executed anyway, because it will always be one of these errors, right? Because we're checking only for these 3 conditions in the beginning.
Yeah.
And we are jumping to this catch block because one of these things, one of these errors happens, right? Either the amount is not correct, or the sending account or the receiving account, because we are checking only 3 conditions in the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? So since we jumped here, that means something must happen here, right? Some sort of error must have happened here. That's why we jumped here, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it wouldn't have jumped here, but it would just execute these 2 update statements and say funds were successfully transferred. That's it, right?
Yeah.
So this is how it works. So basically, when you provide this amount, sending account, receiving account, it will come and start checking. It will put the amount here and then check the balance for that sending account. And if the balance is higher, it will jump here and then check that again, and then say if the balance is higher, it will do this.
Yeah.
Okay? And the same goes to sending account. It will check if the sending account exists or receiving account exists. If all of this pass, meaning the amount is good, sending account exists, receiving account exists, this means there will be no errors. So it will jump here and then do this update statement. Okay?
Yeah.
And then basically we'll update the table and then say funds were successfully transferred. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
I know it's a little complicated. It takes little time to consume this, but it's okay. We will probably do this in the next class also, okay? Until you at least have a basic understanding of what's happening.
Yeah.
Okay. So you remember what we were trying to do, right? In the first place, we were trying to do exception handling or error handling and not let the accounts go bankrupt or send the money to somewhere that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
To do that, we will be checking these conditions, okay? So one more time. Uh, and then again, another main point here is if any of these errors occur, like any of these errors happen, my table shouldn't get updated and it should stay as it is, right?
Yeah.
True? Okay. So that is ensured by this try-catch block, because what happens is if any of these errors happen, this try block doesn't let this happen, and it will jump here right away, right?
Yeah.
It will jump here. So that means my table is not updated, and it stays as it was.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have this try-catch block, even if these errors happen, this would get updated anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, this wouldn't get updated basically. Yeah, of course, like the because I have this if statement, it would be raising only one error. That's it.
Yeah.
Like for example, let's alter our procedure and try this. Okay. This function itself is not that bad. Like it also does the job, right? It doesn't at least let me add fonts that don't exist or any other errors from happening, because it's already checking those here, right? But the only problem with this function is it will raise the same error all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if I do this, execute this, it will say, okay, funds were successfully transferred, right? And if I do this, now I can select, and I have this. And let's say if I do this, that the if I'm trying to send money to an account that doesn't exist, right? You see, it will say that this error, which is not enough funds or person doesn't exist, and also it will say funds were successfully transferred at the same time.
Yeah.
And if I check this, the funds are not actually transferred. You see?
Yeah.
And this is wrong, right? It's telling me that the funds are successfully transferred, but it's not. You see, that is why we need all these exception handlings. Okay, I need to be I need to be able to specify each error as this. Okay, whatever happens. And also, I need to be able to run this and this at the same time. But if I only keep this, and if there is an error, it is actually saying that there is an error. And then also it's saying that the funds were successfully transferred. See? Because what it's doing actually is, this is the if statement, right? Basically, what I'm saying is, if this is any of this is there, if the account is not there, or if the amount is more than the balance, say this, right? Or else, do this. If everything is good, do this.
Yeah.
And then this is like a separate thing. This is like the second statement. This will be executed anyway, anytime, whatever happens. Okay? Once it's done with this if statement, it will jump to this anyway. Okay? For that, what I could actually do is, I can say here, return, okay? And raise error. I mean, return, I think, should be here. Okay. In this case, what it does now is, at least, it will not execute this part. Okay.
Yeah.
It will just raise the error. Like, for example, if I say this, you see, it says funds or person doesn't exist, and then my account stays the same, right?
Yeah.
This is actually the easiest way of achieving that thing. This is what we wanted, right? If there is any error, say there is an error, and then don't do anything, don't update or do anything, right?
Yeah.
But the problem with this is it will say the same error for anything.
Yeah.
Okay. So for this, I can only say so that it's well, basically it is actually telling me now that there is an error. See, not enough funds or person doesn't exist, but it's not saying which one.
Yeah.
Because I cannot specify that here. I can only raise one error. Okay.
Yeah.
To specify each error, I have to do catch block and check for each error again. Okay. So that's why we need this try catch block. That's why it's part of error handling, because you have to handle each error. You have to specify each error. You cannot say one thing for all of the errors, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're achieving with this catch block. Okay. But the same job could be done with only one if statement if you don't care about what error message is being raised. For all of the errors, you will have only one error message.
Yeah.
So therefore, you have to modify your error message so that it's generic, like general error message. You're saying you are covering it's either not enough funds or person doesn't exist, and it doesn't say which person, sending or receiving. It's just saying person doesn't exist. Okay.
Yeah.
You have to modify your message in a way that it's a general message, because your code doesn't know which error exactly happened, right?
Yeah.
So this is one way of doing it, the simplest way of doing it, as long as you don't care about what kind of error you want to raise.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is the second way of doing it. Okay. In this case, we're doing the same transfer thing with try catch block. Okay. This gives you the flexibility of specifying each error.
Yeah.
Okay. So because each time it checks, it's saying if amount is more than the balance, say this. If sending account is not in this account, say this.
Yeah.
And if the receiving account not in this, say this.
Yeah.
Okay. Else, say this.
Yeah.
Okay. In this try block, it's again checking for any of these conditions. Okay. What we're saying is check if the amount is greater or if the accounts don't exist, then say this. Otherwise, meaning else, if there is no error, do this.
Yeah.
Okay, meaning update the tables and then say this. Funds were successfully transferred. Okay?
Yeah.
And then end the try. So if everything is good, if there is no error, it checks these conditions, and if there is no error, it will do this, and then end the try, and then it will not even start the catch block, right? Because everything is fine in the try block.
Yeah.
Catch block will only execute if there is an error in the try block. Okay? Otherwise, it doesn't jump here.
Yeah.
So if there is an error, it will stop doing this and then jump here to catch block.
Yeah.
And then in order to specify each error, we have to check it again, right?
Yeah.
And we're checking it again, and we're saying if amount is more than the balance, save this error. If the sending account doesn't exist, save this error. And if the receiving account doesn't exist, save this error. Okay? Else, raise this error.
Yeah.
And then end the catch.
Uh-huh.
That is all happening. So there's like 2 steps. Okay? And that's how the try catch block works.
Yeah.
Basically, if there is an error in whatever inside the try block, it will jump to the catch block and start executing the catch block.
Yeah.
If there is no error inside the try block, it will execute the try block, and then it doesn't jump to catch block. Okay?
Yeah.
So now we just implemented the bank transfer logic within this one. Okay? Does this at least make sense, like in a higher level? Like, I know that the syntax is very complicated for now, but at least do you understand how this thing is working, each step?
Yeah. I understand. So in order to prevent errors, we need to use that error handlings with transactions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you at least understand how this try and catch is working?
Yeah.
Like, why is this executing if there is an error, and if there is no error, this is executing? Because that's how the try and catch work.
Yeah.
Basically, the try part, you see, begin try and end try, right?
Yeah.
Try, it first tries to execute this whatever inside the try.
Yeah.
Okay? If everything is good, it will execute that.
Yeah.
But if there is something wrong, it will say, okay, I tried, but it didn't, it was something wrong there. So now you need to catch it. So it will throw this to catch block. And catch block will catch that and then start executing this.
Yeah.
Okay? So basically, try will try to execute whatever is inside that try. And if everything is good, it will succeed and execute that. And it will say, okay, catch, you don't need to do anything because I tried and I was able to do it. If something happens, then it will say, okay, I tried, but I couldn't do it. So now you need to catch it and then try doing now. Okay?
Yeah.
So this is the try catch block. So I will put bank transfer with try catch block. Okay? And now the actual topic of today's class was the transactions, right?
Yeah.
So we can do the same thing with the transactions. Okay?
Yeah.
So so now, if you see, it's very easy to do it with the transactions. Okay? But here again, if we want to specify each error, we have to again add the try catch block, but it's okay. For now, I want you to understand the how the transactions work. Okay. Okay. Now we have modified the code to our tables. So now the same thing also can be achieved with the transactions. Okay. Okay. So what does a transaction do? It will basically treat this whole thing as one.
Yeah.
Okay? This whole, you see this begin trend, this means beginning the transaction. Okay. Now, this whole thing is one thing. It means either this whole thing will happen or nothing will happen.
Mm.
Okay?
Yeah.
It means that it either updates this, right? Or nothing will happen to that table.
Yeah.
So it will not be somewhere in between. It will not update one row and then the other row will be not affected or anything like that. It will either update or do everything, or it will not do anything to the table.
Yeah.
Okay? That is why when it says, if you look at here, as if you look at the definition, a transaction is treated as a single unit. A transaction ensures that either all of the commands succeed or none of them.
Mm-hmm.
You see, it means that it either will execute all of the commands, or if anything happens to any of the commands, none of them will be executed. It will put it back to what it was.
Yeah.
See, if one of the commands in the transaction fails, all of the commands fail.
Mm-hmm.
And any data that was modified in the database is rolled back. Rolled back means it puts it back.
Yeah.
So in this way, transactions maintain the integrity of data in a database.
Mm.
Okay? Integrity means the correctness of the data. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when I was doing the updates without these transactions or without the try-catch plug, and if I was, let's say, if I was sending 500 to an account that doesn't exist, it was actually taking that 500 from my account, but it was not adding it to that account because that account doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
But still, my account has $500 less now.
Yeah.
Okay? That means the integrity of the table is broken. It's incorrect data. Okay.
Yeah.
So what does a transaction do? It means like it will either be all of the statements or none of them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if I was sending $500 to an account that didn't exist, transaction will say, okay, I will check. If it doesn't exist, I will not even take that $500 from your account. I will put it back, okay? Because it's either I will do it to the end or I will not do it at all.
Mm.
Okay?
Yeah.
So if I take that 500, I have to put it somewhere. If I can't put it somewhere, I'll just put it the 500 back to its place.
Yeah.
So that is what transaction ensures, that all of these things within the transaction will execute as all of them, or none of them will execute.
Mm.
Okay?
Yeah.
So now I will explain what is how it works and each part of the transaction. Okay? Now I altered the store procedure again, and so now what happens? This is the procedure, and these are the parameters that we specified. This part you understand, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have the parameters, so I have to provide those values. And I'm saying begin the transaction, you see, or you can say transaction, it doesn't matter. Just like stored procedure or stored proc, it doesn't matter, okay? You can say tran, or you can say transaction. It doesn't matter, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm saying, whenever I execute the store procedure with the provided values,
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying begin the transaction
Mm-hmm.
and go ahead and update these tables.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and update the tables, and after you update,
Mm-hmm.
check if the amount is more than the balance, or if the sending account doesn't exist, or if the receiving account doesn't exist. Raise this error,
Mm-hmm.
and then roll back the transaction. You see, this is the important part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Roll back means, okay, if there is this error, roll back the transaction. That means cancel whatever you just did with this update. Okay, so it will roll it back to the beginning of the transaction, okay, to here.
Yeah.
So that means whatever happened after here will be canceled. Okay, so it will roll it back.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically I'm saying, okay, you go ahead and do whatever you want to do. You want to update the table, that's fine. Okay, just update. But after you update the table, go and check if this amount is higher than this balance or whatever.
Yeah.
Just roll back whatever you just did before here. Okay? Roll back means cancel.
Yeah.
Okay? It means cancel
Yes.
whatever was executed before. Okay?
Yeah.
So when you say roll back, it will cancel everything.
Yeah.
And I'm putting that in the if clause, right? I'm saying if this one of these conditions is true, meaning if the amount is more than the balance, or if the sending account doesn't exist, or if the receiving account doesn't exist, then begin, raise the error, roll everything back, meaning cancel everything, and then end. Else means if everything is fine here,
Yeah.
that means it will go to else part. Else, begin, commit trend. Commit trend means it's okay now. You can save it. Okay? It means save,
Transaction, yeah.
yes, save the above changes. Okay? So I'm saying if everything is okay here, go here and then commit the transaction. And then print transfer was successful. And then end.
Yeah.
So once the transaction is committed, you cannot roll it back.
Yeah.
Okay? That's why I am first checking this, and then if there's any error, I'm rolling it back. If I put this here, there is no point. If I commit it and then roll back, it will not roll it back because it's already saved.
Yeah.
Okay? So that is what a transaction does. So transaction either will roll back or commit.
Yeah.
Okay? Commit means save whatever happened. So what happened is this update. This will happen anyway. The first thing is this update will happen. Okay? And then it will check if something was wrong. It will roll back the trans. That means it will cancel this update.
Yeah.
And if everything is fine, it will commit the transaction. That means it will save this update. Whatever is updated will be saved in the database now.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now let's try. So now you have 500, I have 400, right? So if you send me 100, so $100 from account 1 to account 2, right? It should be fine. The accounts exist and the money exists. So if I do this, it will say transfer was successful. And then if I check this, now you have 400, I have 500, right? And now let's try this. I want you to send me $1,000, which you don't have, right? Now if I execute this, you see, it will say one row affected first. Basically what it's saying is it updated one row and it updated to another row, and then it checked and there was an error. It said error, and then if I check this now, everything stays as it is because it rolled it back. Okay? It rolled it back. Okay?
Yeah.
So now I'll show you something. I will show you these transactions in like apart from this money transfer thing. Okay, I want to show you what is actually happening here. Okay? So I'll open new one. Let me copy this part. Okay, now we have this table. So now I'll put this equals to 1, and then balance equals to, let's say, okay, now you have 500. Let me select everything from the table. I want to show you what's happening behind the scene also, okay? How the transaction is actually working. So now I will begin the transaction and update the account, set the balance equals to, say, 1,000, where account number is 1, right? So in account number 1, there is now 400. So it should become 1,000 now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then I can either commit the transaction, meaning save the transaction, right?
Yeah.
Or roll back the transaction, okay? And then end, okay? So for now, I will comment out this rollback part, okay? And I will also comment out this commit part, okay? And ran. Well, actually, maybe we don't need to end at all. Okay. So now I updated the table, right? I updated it, but I did not save the changes, you see? I didn't commit, or I didn't roll back. So now I go here, and if I select everything from here, you see what happens? It will not select anything. It will just stay like this, okay?
Yeah.
You know why? You see, it will say executing the query, and it will never stop. Okay? You see, it doesn't stop because this change is neither saved or rolled back. Okay? It knows this change is happening. This actually it happened, but it doesn't know should it save the change or should it cancel the change. Okay? You see, that's why this doesn't select anything. Because it's waiting for this transaction to either save the change or cancel the change. Okay?
Cancel, yeah.
That's why this will stop do it like forever until I either save the change or cancel the change. Okay?
Yeah.
Now let's save the change. Okay? Now we'll commit the transaction. Okay? And now if I go here, you see, it just selected it right away.
Yeah.
Okay? And if I select it now I have 100. See? Because we put that to 100. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, once I have committed the transaction, I cannot roll it back. Okay?
Yeah.
So if I say roll back, it doesn't have corresponding begin transaction now. You see?
But we cannot do like a drop table, something like drop transaction.
No, transaction, it's not something that is saved in the database. It's just a function.
Oh.
It doesn't exist in the database. Okay?
Okay.
So you cannot drop it because it doesn't exist. It's sort of a concept. So transaction lets you either commit or cancel. I mean, either save the changes or cancel the changes based on some criteria. You can, like in this case, why did we have that transaction in the first place is because we don't want to update this and save it right away.
Yeah.
We want to update it, but then check if everything is correct. If everything is correct, then we want to save it, like say commit. Okay? If something is wrong, then roll back. That means put it back to where it was. Okay? So now, as you saw here, Now this executed. Before I saved it, it was just running forever, right? It was not showing you anything, right? So it was running forever. But once I saved it, now it's showing you because now it knows, okay, this is the final decision. It got saved. That's why I'm showing you this.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's do a rollback. Okay. Now we have this. It's 100. Let's update that to 1000. Okay. So now I execute this again. One row is affected. Okay. But if I want to select it again, now it's again running forever, right? Because again, it's waiting for me to either save the change or roll it back.
Yeah.
Okay? So now let's roll it back. Now I updated it to 1000 and it says one row affected. It means it updated it already.
Yeah.
But now if I roll it back, you see? Now it's back to 100 again. It first updated to 1000, but now since I rolled it back, it didn't save the changes, it canceled the changes, and so that's why it's 100 again. You see?
Yeah.
So that is what the transaction does. Transaction lets you either save the changes or cancel the changes. Okay?
Yeah.
So why do you need that? Because you want to check after you have done something, you want to check if everything is right or wrong. If something is wrong, you want to roll it back. Okay? In our case, if there was not enough money or if these accounts didn't exist, I wanted to everything go back to what it was. I want to cancel everything. Okay? If everything is fine, then I want to save it. Okay? So that is what a transaction does.
Yeah.
So transaction either lets you update this like as it is, or it doesn't let you update at all. See? You can either save the change or you can cancel the change, but you cannot have it somewhere in between. Okay? So that is what happens here. Does this make sense? Do the transactions make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Now I want to show you just a little thing that is called isolation. Well, isolation level. I encourage you to read about the isolation levels, but I want to show you something that's called deadlock. Now,
Like interview information, like the papers.
yeah, it's deadlock.
Yeah, deadlock. Yeah.
Basically, what happens is if I execute this now, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't commit it or didn't roll it back. I didn't either save it or cancel. And if I want to select this, you see, in this case, it's showing me 1000, right? See, it's showing me 1000 because it updated it, but I didn't save it, right? But if I execute in another instance, right? Now it's executing forever. But in this instance itself, it's showing me, but still, this is not something that's something that is saved yet, right? I didn't save it. Well, basically, this is not. Oh, sorry, it's not deadlock, but it's called dirty read. Sorry.
Yeah.
Deadlock. I will show you the next class. Okay. Dirty read. So now, let's say, so now I have updated this, and if I select, it's 1000 now, right? But I didn't save it or either cancel it. That's why this is running forever, because it doesn't know if I'm going to save it or cancel it. Now let's cancel it. What happens if I cancel it? Okay. Now I have 100 here.
Mm.
You see, this one was showing, let's say this one was showing the 1000, but
Mhm.
this one is showing 100.
Yeah.
That's called a dirty read, and dirty read means basically for the same thing you have two different types of data,
Yeah.
which is wrong, right?
Mhm.
And SQL Server has something called isolation levels to prevent those kind of transactional errors. There's like
Mhm.
dirty read, there's phantom reads, and all that. Okay, and this
Yeah.
this is like by default it's I think it's serializable isolation level, so it doesn't let you do the dirty read. Okay,
Mm.
if it
Mhm.
was if it was not in a serializable isolation level, it would actually let me see at the same time. I would be seeing here 100, and here I would be seeing 1000.
Mhm.
Okay? Since this doesn't have, it has serializable isolation level, it doesn't let you do that. But we'll learn that later in the future classes, okay?
Mhm.
How to set the isolation levels and everything. Okay?
Mhm.
So this is
Yeah.
just a small little intro to that transactional errors, faults.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So far, does this make sense at least?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Makes
Okay.
sense.
Good. So we will. I think we will have to continue this transactions and all tomorrow
Mm.
also because I feel that